I entered my 30s being broke, tired from a job I didn't like, from an unhealthy lifestyle, tired of the lack of direction, the absence of purpose, and feeling like I accomplished nothing in life. Have you ever felt like a failure? Because we all think that if we don't have everything figured out by the time we're 30, we're just losers and there's no hope for us. I can't send a message to my younger self to tell him that it wasn't too late, that there's still time, that it will be more successful and fulfilled than he ever imagined. But I can send that message to you. My name is Marwan Berkhat and I'm a 37 years old solopreneur from Cairo, Egypt. I'm looking back over the last 7 years and everything that I learned from them, hoping that if you're feeling down, this message inspire you and show you that it's 100% possible to turn your life around and make changes in your 30s to live the life you want. Not only to give you hope, but also to provide you actionable steps to improve your life. So here's my message to you. To fully understand what the success metric really is, I need to tell you a story. In 1983, a talented young guitarist faced the shock of his life. He was kicked out of his band. The band had just signed their first record deal and they were about to record their first album. But a couple of days before recording began, the band literally woke him up by handing him a bus ticket home. As he sat on the bus back to Los Angeles from New York, the guitarist thought that he missed his one and only shot. But by the time the bus hit LA, his mindset shifted. He decided to form a new band that would be so successful that his old band would forever regret their decision. He would become so famous while they worked ordinary jobs watching him rocking on live TV. So the guitarist spent months recruiting the best musicians he can find, far better musicians than his previous bandmates. He wrote dozens of songs and practiced non-stop. In a few years, his new band signed a record deal of their own, and not long after, their first record went gold. The guitarist was Dave Mustaine, and his new band was the legendary heavy metal band Megadeth. Today, he's considered one of the most iconic musicians in the history of heavy metal music. Unfortunately, the band that he was kicked out of was Metallica, considered by many one of the greatest rock bands of all time. In a 2003 interview, Mustaine tearfully admitted that he couldn't help but consider himself a failure. Despite all he had accomplished, in his mind, he'd always be the guy that got kicked out of Metallica. As humans, we measure ourselves against others. The question is not whether we evaluate ourselves against others, but rather by what standards do we measure ourselves. Dave Mustaine chose to measure himself by whether he was more successful and popular than Metallica. He adopted success relative to Metallica as the metric by which to measure himself and his success. Despite all the money and the fans, he still considered himself a failure. Now, you and I may look at this situation and laugh. Here's a guy with millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of raving fans, a career doing the thing he loves best, and yet, he still felt like a loser. This is because you and I have different values than Mustaine, and we measure ourselves by different metrics. Our metrics are probably more like, I don't want to work for a boss I hate, or I want to earn enough money to secure my kid's future. By these metrics, Mustaine is crazily successful. But by his metric, be more popular and successful than Metallica, he's a failure. Our values determine the metrics by which we measure ourselves and everyone else. Some values and metrics are simply better than others. So think wisely when measuring your success. Your first step to feeling and being more successful is to re-evaluate your success metric. Let me share another story, but this time, a personal one. From birth until the age of 17, I was a perfect example of success. I always had the highest grades, straight A's in school. Heck, I even cried once in high school for getting 91% in physics instead of a full mark. But then, I faced failure. I failed when I majored in engineering at university and again in computer science. I failed engagement, failed job interviews, I failed first business, and many other setbacks left me feeling worthless. I even put myself in a situation where I was homeless, sleeping on the streets for more than a month. Yet deep inside, I held on to the belief that these failures would lead to something better. That all these mistakes, along with my successes, shaped who I am today. If I didn't make these mistakes and experience those failures, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I absolutely love where I am now. So embrace your failures. See them as stepping stones to something greater. Because if I hadn't failed in dropshipping, I wouldn't have started Baby Sunnies and had my dream exit payday. If my last relationship hadn't failed, I would never have moved to China, where I met the love of my life and the mother of my children. I dare say that my failures are actually the best things that have happened to me. Your second step to success is to learn to love your failures. Don't fear failure, because failing is your biggest asset. I'm sure you're familiar with stories about people who made it in their 50s and 60s. I'm not a self-help guru. I'm just another person like you who learned firsthand that no matter your age, there's still time to make a change. There's still time to achieve your wildest dreams, but remember, it will also take time. The biggest lesson I've learned in my life is that as long as you take action towards your goal, no matter how small, you're gonna be just fine. Just take action every single day. Take it one step at a time, one task at a time, one goal at a time, but keep moving. Your third step to achieving what's most important to you is simply to do something.